Welcome to this video on understanding PCI DSS. For the next two videos, this is going to be our core focus, PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. Now, obviously for the CISSP, you definitely need to know a lot about risk management. In fact, that's the bulk majority of what you are going to be doing on the exam is risk management. So in this particular video and the next one, we are going to focus on payment card industry data security standards. So we are going to talk about the requirements and then we are going to focus on assessment in the next video. Now, the whole point behind PCI DSS is to protect cardholder data from unauthorized access or disclosure. Now, there's a variety of laws and regulation and all this stuff that focuses on security, mainly privacy. That's a lot of laws, and that's the focus of a majority of cybersecurity laws is privacy and protecting individual privacy right and so on. But in this particular standard, notice I said standard. It's not a legal requirement. It's not a regulation. It's not a law at anywhere. It's the standard, but it is treated like a law and it is treated like a regulation. So it goes a long way in proving due care, due diligence with your organization's ability to protect that cardholder data. So remember that for the exam, it is treated like a law or regulation. So everybody who is processing credit card payments of some kind, payment gateways, you are taking payments on your website or whatever it is, you have to comply with PCI DSS in some way, shape or form. I have done it in my career. I know a lot of other folks have done it too. So what we are going to talk about is the requirements to protect this specific data. Now, first of all, you need to go to the document library, PCI's document library, to download the latest PCI DSS. So you can scroll down a little bit. You will do a search like you notice right here. I did a search on PCI DSS and it will pop up with the document right here. And in this particular recording, at the time of this recording, it's version 4. Maybe it's later, maybe it's 4.1 or 4.1.1, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, get the latest version and then go ahead and download that. When you open it, it should look something like this, where you have a document, it will say PCI DSS, and then it will have its version. And also notice right here requirements and testing procedures, and that's exactly what we are focusing on for the CISSP exam. Now, PCI DSS reference 60 different guidance documents and information supplements, as they call it, to create the standard. You do not need to know all this for the CISSP exam. However, if you work with the PCI DSS, I would highly recommend looking through all these resources that might or might not affect your organization. What I am going to do in this video is I am going to teach you about PCI DSS. I am going to boil it down to what I think is going to be on the CISSP exam. But I definitely wanted to give this some context to help you understand that it is not just a simple standard. It is not just a 3 or 4 page document. As long as you can see, it's 360 page long. It's a big standard. So let's break everything down to what I think is going to be on the exam and help you to learn this as fast as possible. Notice that we need to protect cardholder data. That's what I said at the beginning of this video. So that is the primary focus, what you are going to see on the exam. When you are talking about cardholder data, here it is right here. It's going to be account number, the cardholder name, the expiration date, and the service code. Those are the four main things that you need to know for the exam. On the other side, you have sensitive authentication data. That's going to be what we call full track data. That's like the magnetic strip on the back of your credit card, or maybe an embedded chip. You know, when you do the whole touchless thing and that all. So that could be part of it. The card verification code, which is also what we call the CVV, and then the PIN. The PIN that used when you go make a transaction, enter your PIN, that is also sensitive authentication data. So while I expect you are going to see a lot of question about the cardholder data and privacy as it relates to that, you could see some authentication data as well. So let's cover some of this. Now, as you read through the PCI DSS, you are going to notice that it specifically mentions the requirement applied to the cardholder data environment, or CDE, and that's comprised of the system components to the infrastructure. The people who are trying to use the overall card to purchase things and then process that, the store process or whatever transmit that cardholder data and the sensitive authentication data, that is the environment. So basically it is the scope of everything: managing, processing, collecting, handling the overall payment. That could be server, that could be instances in the cloud, that could be overall person, that could be the card mechanism that you are using. It could be a lot of different things. The system components that may not store, process, transmit cardholder data or sensitive authentication data, but have unrestricted connectivity to it are also included. So basically, any of the infrastructure that's going to process this is going to be affected. So if we have a cloud environment like you see here, that could be the apps that are processing the cardholder data, that could be database that are storing that cardholder data. It can also be if you have what's called payment gateway like PayPal, Stripe, things like that. Those are payment gateway. So if you are dealing with payment gateway, you have to provide security up to the payment gateway. So if you have an API connection between them, application programming interface, and you have, let's say, an API from this app and it's connecting over to a payment gateway, we have to protect this data all the way through transmit till it gets to the gateway. Now, some of the gateway will do that for you. You just put in your APIs and it's a secure API and all that other stuff. But sometime, maybe not. It just depends on your environment and how your organization process that. But again, this comprise the cardholder data environment. Anything that affect the security of the data or the sensitive authentication data needs to comply with PCI DSS. So when we are talking about applicability, again, it's focused specifically on the cardholder data and the sensitive authentication data. So again, when we talked about applicability, this is what a payment card look like. Everybody got one of these at some point or another. You have got the magnetic stripe on the back that contains your SAD, your sensitive authentication data. The chip will contain the SAD, right? Your cardholder name is here, the expiration date are here, and there's your CVV as well. The verification or verification code or something like that. So this is all data that needs to be protected at any given time. And so those controller requirements that are in PCI DSS look just like this. Now, there's only 12 of them at high level, but these 12 requirement or control break down deeper, much deeper. So when we look at them, there's really the 12. You install and maintain network security controls, apply secure configuration to all system components, protect store account data, protect cardholder data with strong encryption, strong cryptography during transmission over Open public network, protect all the system and networks from malicious software, develop and maintain secure system and software, restrict access to system components and cardholder data by business need to know. 8 is identify user and authentication access to system components. 9 is restrict physical access to cardholder data, and 10 is log and monitor. 11 is test security of the system, and 12 is support information security with organizational policies and programs. Now, those 12 requirements pretty much sum up everything that we all do anywhere. Like if you are doing NIST SP 853, you are doing pretty much this as a much deeper scale, of course, but it's touching on everything, policies and programs. So you got to set that up. Now you have that, and that's going to point back to your laws and regulation. In this case, it's going to point back to the PCI DSS. We are securing networks. We talked about securing the cardholder data. I talked about transmitting it over the APIs and all that stuff. So this is where it all ties together, and this is going to apply throughout the entire system. So when you look at the requirement themselves, they break down like this: build and maintain a secure network system. This was number 1. But now if you look, there's 5 sub requirements that we have to account for. So we have to account for the processes mechanism for installing and maintaining network security controls are defined and understood. So we have to document them. We have to put them into spreadsheet. We have to put them into GRC tool, governance risk and compliance tool, like something like Archer, RSA Archer. Nonetheless, it's a GRC tool, and it is a massive database program that store all your controls. Or you can just do it in a simple sheet like Google Sheet, or you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet, which I have done many times in my career. Either way, we have to document them and we have to understand those controls. Then we have our network security controls are configured and maintained. So those are our implementations. How are we doing this? Network access to and from the cardholder data environment is restricted. So now we have account management, identity and access management a little bit floating in there. Network connection between trusted and untrusted network are controlled. So in that case, maybe some VPN, virtual private network, or doing transport layer security between the APIs or whatever that might be. And then 5, risks to CDE to the cardholder data environment from computing devices that are able to connect to both untrusted network and the CDE are mitigated. So what this means is that we have to account for anything that can connect to the CDE that maybe we don't really have a lot of exposure to in the background. We don't know if that nodes that are connecting into another network could possibly expose the CDE to more risk, to more vulnerabilities, to more threats, those kind of things. Does that make sense? So we have to harden, secure, and be fully aware of the entire environment, the posture of the environment, and each one of these are going to break down even more. So now you can see 1.1 right here, and 1.1 start breaking down even further to 1.1.1. So it's just going to keep going down this rabbit hole and explain exactly what you should be doing. So in this case, for 1.1, processes and mechanisms for installing and maintaining network security controls are defined and understood. That's what I was talking about. We are documenting all of our controls. Well, here you go. All of the policies and operational procedure are documented. So now we have an artifact that demonstrates that we have proper security control in place. that we are updating it. Due diligence and due care creating that document. Due diligence is keeping that document up to date with new changes to demonstrate that we have a good handle on continuous monitoring, that we are fully aware of the security posture of the system. We can even get down to the type of tools, the mechanism and other things that we are using to actually implement that. And then also we need to make this available to all effective stakeholders. So anyone that has a stake in the PCI DSS, so mainly senior leadership, senior management, the C-suites, security architects, security engineers, IT architects, cloud architects, whatever it might be, they need to know where to find this so that they know what is required when they start building new network connection or making network changes. Does that make sense? So it's a bigger process than just. But for the CISSP exam, this is what you need to understand, what right here in this box, that it is going to break down further and it is going to give you the requirements and tell you exactly what to do. Do you need to know this requirement for the exam? No, you don't. I don't think they are going to ask you any question about the specific control. But what you need to know is the 12 high-level controls. Beware of those. Be aware of those. Now, in the next video, what we are going to talk about is the part here, the actual testing. Once we have the control all implemented, you are going to go through all the sub requirement and then just go through all the other sub requirements and you just keep breaking it down. Then we have to test and verify or assess and make sure that everything is built properly, and that's what we are going to talk about in the next video. So for the CISSP exam, know the PCI DSS is not a law or regulation, but it is treated as such in the payment card industry. So for due care, due diligence purpose, we implement and we comply with PCI DSS as if it were a regulation, but no government mandate its use. It doesn't mandate its use or its compliance, but it is treated like that in the payment card industry. Know the cardholder data type. You need to know those type that require PCI DSS compliance. Also know the sensitive authentication data types that require PCI DSS compliance. I covered that here. Make sure that you know those for the exam, because I'm pretty sure that they are going to ask. It's either going to be related to this or it's going to be related to this, and then it's going to tie back to the cardholder data environment. So you need to know that as well. Remember, it's anything that could possibly touch, process, collect or anything related to payment card industry data security standard. So anything with the cardholder data, anything with the sensitive authentication data, anything that's part of the environment. And remember, we are concerned about the posture, the security posture of the environment, and then also be familiar with the PCI DSS requirements, mainly the high level one, just the 12 that I covered here. You are not going to have to know the sub requirement, just the high level in case you see them. So I hope you found this video helpful, and we will see you in the next one where we'll be talking about PCI DSS assessment.